Just got through watching the 6th episode of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Let's talk about it right after this. What's going on, everybody? We just watched, like I just said, the 6th episode of The Rings of Power. Just got through watching it, so this is going to be like our immediate kind of like review without letting it sink in very much at all. Then we have this glorious cast with me that's all probably going to have their own favorite things and everything else about the show. So let's do the thing. We'll start off with the most, I would say, the biggest fans of the Lord of the Rings period would be the first two right after me. So we'll start off with them. Adelia, what'd you think about the show overall, just general?
I really like this episode a lot. Even the Numenor stuff, which I had been hating, I actually enjoyed in this episode. Disa's the best. Her calling down the bats was really cool. The stuff that meant the most in this episode to me, though, is everything with Anatar, Sauron, whatever we're calling him. He was brilliant in this episode. Just the way he was manipulating everything, manipulating the dwarves and manipulating Celebrimbor and even Merdania. Is that what her name is? The other that
Mirandia,
Smith?
something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. Karen. I'd call her a Karen. But just his manipulations were just on point in this episode, and the way that he used the very powerful magic towards the end to make Celebrimbor think everything outside of the tower was perfectly fine was just chef's kiss. It was done so well. I'm sure I'll have other things to say as other people talk, but I'll let other people talk now.
French?
Oh, a lot of what Adelia said. And this was very much a Tolkien nerd lore episode.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of layers of lore that were all kind of coming into, okay, yeah, I've read about this. I've read about this. One of my nerd groups, we were talking about this. There was a lot of that today, especially some of the Numenor stuff, which, yeah, like Adelia, I hadn't been liking, but this was cool. I would have loved to have seen more of the worm than we did, but that's just me. I mean, I know money's money, and that's an expensive effect. Something I thought about as we were going through the credit reel or the credit music is they opened with Arondir running through the woods and shooting a bunch of orcs, and then we didn't see any of them again.
Yeah.
And as much Elendil and Numenor as we had this week, we still haven't had any update on Isildur.
Yeah, we haven't had Isildur in a while.
So yeah, I did like the Harfoots, and what again, like the nomadic Harfoots that we've known in the first season. They're constantly moving. They don't have a place. We know these people are going to end up being hobbits in the Shire, but they're not there yet. And then we run into these people who we're seeing. Yeah, they're going to stay where they are. They're not going to run away from these scary dark wizard because this is my home. You know, we dug this ourselves. I love that. And, you know, yeah, Poppy and Nobody, which I love his nickname because I can't remember his real name.
Merrimack.
Yeah. That whole bit where they have their little kiss scene and he's got a porcupine quill and she's got a poisonous snake in her hand and they're both going in for the kiss like nothing's going on. And I'm shouting into the camera going, pay attention to what you're doing, people. That was a wonderful scene. And there were a lot of wonderful scenes and exchanges between the characters this season that, yeah, the short version of season 2 has been so much better than season 1. And we just got to the battle part. I mean, we saw the catapults at the end of the episode. So yeah, next episode is going to be action heavy, and we'll probably find out what happens with Isildur. But yeah, my computer quit like right when Muriel was coming in the cell, so I kind of missed some bits in the middle there. But yeah, I'll rewatch it. I'm sure I'll get it. But this was a great episode.
Go ahead, Brandi.
Yeah, I liked the episode. It had some people only had like small little parts, like the guy in the beginning. We only saw him, like French said, a little bit, and then we got a little bit of the Nori and Poppy and all them, but not so much. A little bit of the stranger, little bits here and there. But there's more parts for the other, but they still threw in those. Okay, here's your little nugget. You wanted to see them? Here you go. Here's your little nugget. I like that because I love Nori, I love Poppy, and I want to know how that's gonna go. And I do like the stranger to see who he is, which you guys probably already figured it out. I don't.
We have guesses. We have ideas. It could be any one of like 5 people.
Mm-hmm. But he has the choice from that guy Tom. Yeah. He's like, well, you go save Nori, or you go.
The only thing I'm sure about the stranger is he's not Tom Bombadil.
I'm pretty sure he's not Radagast either, but that's just me.
Yeah,
he's searching for his staff that
and it was another example. They had an example in season 1 where the stranger is using lines that we associate with Gandalf, and Tom was giving him in a kind of a reverse order. He changed the order so it meant something different, but the same words. He's using Gandalf lines or lines that Gandalf will use later. So I'm thinking this is Gandalf. I'm sorry for interrupting, but that was just the stranger has some. He and Tom had some great exchanges, but it was super lore nerdy. So if you don't know all this shit, it might have flown over your head.
Well, I'm noticing some things. It's the word precious being said a lot.
Oh yeah.
So I know that. Yeah. See, I haven't really fully watched everything, but I get that part with the rings and the little Gollum, my precious, like being. So I get those little tidbits. I don't know everything, but and then Galadriel with the dude, the other, I can't remember names.
The rocker leader,
the dark dude.
Adar. His name's Adar.
So that stuff, and then she's like, "No, you're playing into it. This is what he wants. You're gonna do, and it could be what he wants." And then him doing the trick where he was making the guy who he wants to make all the rings, making it seem like everything's okay. It's all peaceful and butterflies and rainbows and all that stuff. And it's really chaos and going about. And the way he was able to do that, I'm like, that's a mind fuck right there. It's a mind fuck. That's the word I'm using. It is a mind fuck. and then the stuff with the girl that can't see into the water. And I was like, I knew she was making it out. There was no way that she was not making that out of there. They wouldn't do that. I was hoping they would, but I was like excited when she came back out. I'm like, yes, suck it, guy, because I hate that other dude.
Oh yeah, Farazan and the Farazan youth, as French keeps referring to them.
And the guy's daughter, and I hate her, and I was like, suck it, you suck it too. Like, I hate you all. And then we got left with the cliffhanger of the flyer going and hitting. I was like, oh snap! Now we're gonna get some stuff going next week. You know what I mean?
Before we move on, because I don't want to forget something like that Brandi was just talking about, I will say those characters, although they suck or whatever, right? Like you're made not to like them or anything. I wouldn't say that they're like ultimately like evil. Yeah, they're easy to like kind of root against or whatever, because if they were like ultimate evil, they could like do things way worse. They're still like trying to, even though they're trying to take power or whatnot, they're still following the rules.
They suck,
and they don't really have to. You know what I'm saying? They could be Game of Thrones as this thing up and just like.
Well, that guy died last week. The kid.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like with the father, they followed the rules so that he didn't have to go into the water and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, so they're not like ultimate evil. They're just like bad and easy to like not.
And
like.
then some of the other stuff.
Never think they're evil.
Another thing I love Disa. Disa's my favorite, but the father, he knew. He's like, the ring has you. You don't have the ring has you. And he's like, take it off.
That was a great line.
And he went to go take it off. And he's like, Dad, take it off. And then he hit him and he was like, oh, he knows that he's far gone and that he's not going to take that. They got to get that ring off him somehow.
Yeah, an old man Durin threw him across the room, so he had some help.
Yeah, that was a very powerful scene too, when he said that. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
the ring has you. So I was like, ooh, that is so perfectly said. It does have him. It does have a hold of him. And they're gonna have some. They gotta, Disa and her man gotta stop these people from trying to get what their dad is wanting them to do. And that's gonna be a little bit of a struggle fight there. Keep that from happening. And how did that dude get that stuff?
The Mithril?
He's a thief.
Yeah.
He's like,
he's a liar. Of course, he can steal.
It's in a fine powder. Here you go. I'm like, how did you get that? Like,
found a dealer.
Yeah. Found a dealer. Yeah. It was Greg. Greg's his dealer.
Yeah, we were starting this off with like general things, but Brandi just did a whole episode breakdown on her own right there during her general topics.
Listen, I was paying attention. I was a little bad, but I was paying attention to it.
I didn't help.
We're gonna move on to Gregapoo over there. I don't know if he even watched the same show that we did with his tagline he's got going on. But so Greg, I don't know what show you watched, but like the episode that you watched, how did you like it?
It was good. I thought this was the best scenes between two people in the show so far. I thought everybody had their moments where they went back and forth with another actor, and it really shined. We saw just great scenes. Overall, the arcing themes, Sauron's manipulation. You got Gandalf, supposedly Gandalf, whoever, the stranger, having to choose between, the hero's choice, I guess, his friends or his purpose.
I think his friends are his purpose, and he needs to find them to get this back.
But I did notice, Baby Girl brought this up. I'm sorry to interrupt again. But Nori and Poppy are making this decision to go find their friend. And the stranger, at least to me, he made this decision. He's got to go in the woods and find his destiny.
Oh, everybody's going to make a decision. That's the thing
But Tom wrote it out. You can pick friends or your destiny. And the stranger's picking destiny while Nori and Poppy are choosing friend, which I thought was an interesting play. Maybe
they also want to do it because they don't want to hurt the other people. They don't want the other people to get hurt. So there's a choice.
And it could be
this whole episode is about choices.
Maybe he's going through the woods looking for his friends, and that is his destiny. That could be the poetic thing. But I'm sorry to interrupt, Baby Girl.
No, you could tell it's revving up to an end. You could tell this is like 1 or 2 episodes away from the ending, so you can see it revving up. You can finally see like where things are going to start to intertwine and stuff like that. And we're going to get some kind of outcome. So I'm just looking forward to it.
Groovy.
Nice. I'm always the one that's the most critical. And so, but even things that I like a lot of times, I'm going to be critical of it and everything else, even if I like it, because to me, that's the best way to be positive and honest at the same time. Right. So like, when I'm talking about a show, I'm going to point out the stuff that I like. I'm also going to point out the deficiencies where they are, even if I enjoy the show, a lot, because that's me being super honest whenever I do the review. That's just how I am. So with like one of the things that one of y'all brought up whenever y'all talking about the show is this is a problem. And it's not just this show. This is a problem, I think, when you do these like 8 episodes. Now, I do give this show a little bit more props than, say, some of the stuff happening on Disney Plus, because like a lot of those shows are only like 30 minutes long. And this show is at least almost an hour long. So you do get a little more time with the 8 episodes. But I am finding it's happening more and more often where you're coming down to the last 2 episodes. This next to last episode, the penultimate episode, is obviously going to be like a battle, right? There's going to be a couple of little story things that'll cut away from the battle for a little bit, but it's obviously going to be a fight taking place, because the last thing we see is the big fiery boulders flying through the air, which looked really cool. Everything on this show looks really good. That's one thing I do like about this show, is I know they spent a lot of money, but I can actually see where they spent money, because everything on here, even a scene that you don't like, looks good, right? So that's a big props to the show on that part of it. I hate watching the show, and it's like, how the hell did they spend that money? Me and old Greggy Poo and French could have like gathered up some stuff there and filmed something almost as good on our iPhone. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we got duct tape over there, bro. We can put it together. But like the thing is there's a lot of things that's come into a culmination, and there's one or two side plots that I think is okay to have. I always forget his name, but he's my favorite elf. The one we saw at the beginning of the episode, Rondir. I think he's a cool character, and it makes sense. He's like running up. He's catching up, obviously, to like the orcs. So he's going to be doing something during the battle and stuff. So it makes sense, like his little side plot. But all the other things to me is almost just too much, because we're not going to be able to sink in to those characters and the decisions they end up making, right? So we know the stranger, either the next episode or the next ones, there's going to be like kind of a big moment that happens there. We know there's going to be something that's happening in that Southland area that Adelia doesn't like. Those pieces of junk, you know what I'm saying? So like, we know there's things, even with the dwarves, right, that's going to be happening. There's probably going to be a decently big moment for them. But I think because we don't get to like really dive into those story plots as much, like it's going to be weaker because of it. And like, a bunch of things is going to happen in the next few episodes, and not everything's going to be able to get the time it deserves, I don't think, to be honest with you. But we'll see, because like there are 2 more hours, so almost a full-length movie, even a little more than some movies, to keep going.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen Isildur in a hot minute, is because what he's doing right now is not as important as other things are.
Right.
So they're not wasting the time to just check in with Isildur and Estrid and whatever's going on over there. And maybe we'll see them briefly in one of the final 2 episodes, but I don't think there's anything he's not getting reunited with his dad this season. I'm 100% convinced of that right now. So
if we're lucky, he's on a boat heading to Numenor.
Yeah, but like I don't think that's gonna happen. So
right. But like with Galadriel,
balancing it pretty well.
No, I've said this from almost the very beginning. After the first couple episodes, I think this season is better than the first season, bar none. They've done better work, I think, with Galadriel. Now, I don't know if y'all notice this or not, but almost every scene she's in, it looks like she's crying. Her eyes are like all watery and stuff. I don't know if anybody else sees that.
That's a Galadriel thing. With her eyes.
Is it supposed to be like that, like lore wise?
They had to build a lighting rack just to reflect into Cate Blanchett's eyes in the Lord of the Rings movies, because she's got this like glowy bit to her eyes that Tolkien talks about. So,
well, I guess that makes a little bit of sense then. It just looks like she's about to cry every scene, because it looks like her eyes are all watery, and it's probably because of the stupid light they got right in front. Maybe they're doing the same thing. You have like light shining in your face, your eyes start getting all watery. But no, it's just like little things like that. I don't care about the stranger and stuff, to be honest with you, so far. So when they come on the screen, I don't care as much. The dwarves are like okay, but I don't think they're like super great. And but I do like most of the other stuff. Like, for instance, I would give this episode like a 7. I'm giving the whole series so far like a 6.5. But like, I think this is one of, if not the best episode overall, like taking everything that's going on. And we are starting to get the ball rolling on some stuff and everything else that I do find interesting on most of the stuff. It's not, but like I said, me saying I don't like them as much doesn't mean I don't like that part. I just like, for the lady that does the sacrifice was a really cool part of the story on this episode. But I just don't feel like I've had enough time with that character, for instance, whenever she steps in.
You mean the Numenorian queen?
Yeah,
Queen Muriel.
I just don't feel like I had enough, even from season 1 and this season, to be like my heart beating, faster because she's stepping up to do it. It's a cool thing, and I can recognize it's cool, and I think it's a cool part of the story. But like, I'm not over here going like, "Oh my god!"
Your heart should only be beating for me.
No, I'm talking about the moment of the story.
I'm kidding. I had to say something.
Yeah, but you're getting the well-told story, right? And in that moment, like I should be feeling it a little more. But I don't have as much of like, it doesn't have as much of an impact. Like I could still realize it's pretty cool. They didn't write it like super terribly, but that's what I'm talking about is like, we really didn't get a lot. Like she had her thing, what happened to her eyes and she's blind. And I think she's an overall kind of cool character, but I haven't like spent enough time that when she goes to sacrifice herself that I'm like, oh, I'm starting to get a tear build up or anything like that. I think a scene like that, like done well, that's what it should do and should have.
I don't think it was supposed to make anybody tear up. I just think it was supposed to make you feel
it's
like
supposed to be impactful though.
Could.
I mean, because like you have this guy, he's about to die, and then she goes and says, yeah, it's supposed to be an emotional scene. You know, like
not like that, but it's supposed to make you care like a little bit, like
exactly.
She's
but like I didn't
being the queen and stepping up and showing like and stepping up for the guy who
100%
was standing up for her.
Hambone one. It's an interesting. Forgive me if this is the wrong word, dichotomy or some sort of bipolarity of the series where we have a certain set of characters. We know they're going to make it. We know they have a destiny beyond this show. Right. So there's not a whole lot of stakes for them. We know whatever adventures Isildur is going to have, he's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. He's going to make it through this because he's got a bigger part of the story he's going to play. Likewise for Elendil, Galadriel, the elves, Galadriel, Elrond, we know they're going to have bigger things to do. But Disa, we don't know what's going to happen to her. She's not a character we've already invested in the
right, exactly.
Before, which, for people like Adelia and I, this is a new thing. We don't know what's going to happen. This is a deal for us. Whereas for other people, it's like, this person's definitely not going to make it. We know this, so why do I care? And it's kind of like you got two ends. Whereas Galadriel, Elrond, those dudes, their stakes aren't that high, no matter how we try to build it up, because they're going to make it. Whereas what happens to Disa and Durin, that's a big deal.
I'll say this: like the show's been pretty good. I've enjoyed it, but like there's this next level you can get to, and there's some story plot points in here that they could have gotten up to that level. And I think they just missed it by just a little bit, right? Like a little more time with certain characters or something like that, setting it up a little differently. And it could have got to that level. It's when you watch it, like you just made a good point, French. But the trick of writing a story, of making a movie and that kind of thing is that most people get it. Oh, the main characters, nothing's going to happen to. There's no point in writing the story if they're going to die on page 2, right? But the thing about that is like being able to, even though you know that, you get wrapped up into the story so much that like you forget that Galadriel's safe, right? You forget that these other characters are safe for a moment. After the tension breaks, you're like, oh man, why was my heart beating a little faster? Because like I know they're not going to die, right? And that's the trick. And like I said, I think this show is on the cusp of that a couple of times, but they just don't quite get there. It's like almost. But like I said, that's just like me being that like critical. Thing too. Well, it's that, but I'm also like, hey,
Ian, we're six episodes in. We still got that little bit of where they're really going to start paying off what we've been building for so long for.
Right, and but overall, like I said, I'm enjoying it. I don't think this is bad at all. I do feel like the first season drove some people away. Hopefully they'll come back by word of mouth or something, because I don't think this is a bad season of television at all. Is it going to be like House of Dragons or maybe like Last of Us like the year before or whatever for me? No, but it's up there. And I will say this too. I do think if you're a follower and a lover of like Tolkien, I do think those people are getting more out of this than say the people that are watching it, they're layman's, because there are moments that while we're watching it that Adelia and French would be like, oh, that's cool or whatever. And I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? Like, that didn't seem as cool to me, but that's because I don't know all these things. Now, I know some people that are big lore nerds are a little bit mad because they're throwing in characters that probably shouldn't be here, or they're doing certain things in a different order or whatever.
The timeline together and
yeah, exactly. And Adelia and French, though, are two people that love the lore, that doesn't mind it and understands it, so it doesn't hurt their enthusiasm for the show. which is pretty cool because some people will let it get to them too much, and you guys aren't. So I do think that like people that are like y'all are similar in thought and love Lord of the Rings are going to get more out of this than say people that aren't as big of the lore nerds of Lord of the Rings. Because like I said, there were like 2 to 3 moments in this episode alone where y'all had reactions, and I'm like, hey, I almost want to be like, hey, what just happened? What am I supposed to be like reacting to this? Because I don't understand, like, this is a bigger moment, right, for the timeline or for a certain character and stuff like that. So I do think one of the things that is kind of hard to do sometimes is when you make a show like this is to not only make it for the lore nerds, but make it like to where it's a big thing for even the people that aren't, because that's where most of your audience is going to come from. Like, yeah, there's a bunch of Star Wars nerds out there, but the reason why it got so big like it did was because it gravitated and not only got those nerds, but it got all the like mainstream people walking around that thought it was super great too. And that's like a trick that you have to try to pull off.
And yeah,
it's pulling it off because I'm not one of those nerds and I like this show.
Yeah, pleasing the casual fans and feeding the nerds is a very delicate balance, and they're doing a lot better this season than they did the first season.
Oh yes, I'm more invested in this season than I was last season.
Yeah, that's why I kind of feel bad. I wish they would have hit the mark a little better on the first season, because the second season to me is redeemable. Like, I did not like I'm Perfect, or at least they made it seem that way, Galadriel in the first season. I'm liking Galadriel now because she's admitting faults.
But now you understand with the beginning of the first season what happened. I mean, beginning of this season, what happened first season.
I think they needed some of that first season to reintroduce us to characters that a lot of us already know, but also because we're as far back as we are, they're going to be different, and we have to accept. If we'd have just thrown us into the Galadriel that we have now in season 2. If they'd just thrown that at us with now any background or subtext of what the hell this Galadriel is, we'd have been so disassociated it would not make sense. With that first season of Galadriel, whatever our opinions are of that, this season in Galadriel makes perfect sense. Even to the Tolkien nerd brain, yeah, she's on a path to become the magical uber elf that we know her as.
I got a question for all you real quick.
She's got some, and even though she's going to have a happy ending-ish, there's going to be some bad times in the way, and that's where the tension for her character comes from.
Yeah, and what he just said, I kind of got 2 questions, but like we'll start with the first question that I was going to ask. Do you think that this series as a whole would have been better if we would have got, what was it, the first?
Hambone froze.
Yeah, Hambone definitely froze. So we'll come back to Justin's question.
I thought it was me. Justin, you're back.
Okay, you're back. You're back.
So, but if it would have been the beginning of this season, like especially episode 1 would have been like the first thing we saw for the series as a whole. So before, like, so for season 1, if we would have got the beginning that we got in this, do you think people would have liked it a little more?
Maybe.
Because I think the beginning of this season,
so much backstory that's sort of needed, I think, with Sauron and how he deceives all of these people. Because, like, if you just jump straight into making the rings,
we wouldn't have known how.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about all the backstory. I love the backstory that we got at the beginning of this season, but it was technically backstory for even the stuff that we got in season 1.
Okay, so you're talking about like the 20-minute cold open to episode 1 about Sauron.
Exactly, where like we saw Sauron get killed. We saw we saw like him and up to like where him and Galadriel meet each other and stuff. But we got a little more of that backstory. I think would have probably worked at the beginning of season 1 because people would have got a little more of that. I'm not talking about making the rings and stuff.
Don't you think like that the whole point though of season 1 was like try to, and it didn't land for a lot of people, is like try to like throw you off of, well, we don't know who Sauron is. We're trying to portray it as maybe it's this maybe it's actually the White Wizard guy that we're looking at, trying to figure out who he is, or
he even told the audience.
But wouldn't it have thrown him off a little more as if the Sauron you saw at the very beginning would have been the one that we saw at the very beginning of this season, when it doesn't even look like the guy, because they got because a lot of people made fun of the wig. They're like, oh, they just put a wig on the dude and nobody's supposed to know who he is. He does look substantially different.
Superman would put on a pair of glasses and he would suddenly be Clark Kent. And nobody would even guess it could be Superman.
Right. But and maybe they even like change him a little more. But my point being is like you still would have been thrown off because you would have been like, oh, Sauron's this blonde-headed guy, right? Sauron's this.
Oh, he puts on a blind wig and nobody recognizes him. It worked for Hannah Montana.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But like not. But the there was one other thing, but then the old internet thing happened. So one of y'all can step in. I had a second question that I was going to ask for everybody to answer.
I had something I did want to bring up that I did like. I saw it a couple flashes of it. Of course, there's the conversation between Adar and Galadriel, and he brings up, well, what happens to the orcs?
Mm-hmm.
What happens to my people? Okay, you destroy Sauron. What do we do after that? And then there was also those guys when Arondir in the cold open, where there's two of these orcs that they're like, fuck this, we're out of here.
Yeah.
We're done with this. And I do like that there are these glimpses of where the orcs are just orcs. They're not evil and trying to take over the world. Their boss is.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't like that. I like the orcs just being evil. Like maybe you can make to where they're more like I wouldn't mind.
I don't mind this iteration of the orcs being like this, but like if this is what the orcs were like by the times they're working directly for Sauron in the movie trilogy of Lord of the Rings, I don't think that would have worked at all. So I think the orcs are going on a journey here too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't mind them like making them more human, basically like where they have order, right? Like because most of the time you see the orcs and they're just like crazy, like lusting over some blood, like we're gonna go out here and do this. Like I don't mind giving them more of a pecking order, and maybe a few of the characters like Odor or whatever, like the leader, obviously he's going to be a little different, and then maybe he's got some people right below him that's a little more smarter and intelligent and stuff like that, that's kind of like helping lead groups of the orcs and everything. I just don't like it. Like it kind of pulls me out, like when a couple of orcs are just having like this random conversation that's not about like eating somebody.
Amazon workers.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, exactly. Like
Amazon worker.
That's going too far.
I totally feel that vibe.
Yeah, exactly. We have an Amazon employee on here to like really feel that. But
it's like stormtroopers having an argument in the background when they know nobody's watching. It's like, hey, is this what is this, man? Why are we here?
Perfect example in this episode is right before those fools get like murked. Is they're talking, and it's like Greg just said, they sound like they're working at Walmart and they're not liking their benefits. You know what I'm saying? Like they should have been having a conversation about like, what do we think we're gonna do with that pretty little elf? We're gonna cook her. What part? That kind of stupid crap that orcs should be talking about. Like that's the thing that I want to hear them talk about. I don't want to hear them talk about like, hey man, do you think
cut your hours?
Yeah, you think that health insurance is gonna be a little better? Then
I mean, they said that they didn't want to dive because Adar was chasing a ghost, which I think
and that's the whole. I think that fits into who believes that Sauron is still around.
Yeah,
but I do think that's kind of weird for them to be saying whenever we do get moments to where and I guess you're going to have dissension amongst the ranks is what you could say to argue this point, but it would be like every other scene that's got Adar making any decisions. They're pumped. They're behind him 100%. Right. So it's like this conversation. Well, maybe these are just the two assholes. You know what I'm saying? That, they don't want to die, period. But like I said, with the orcs, I kind of like the orcs and the design. They look great and everything else. But some of the things, like the one fight scene they've been in so far, they made them look like chumps because they're just standing around watching an elf do some like amazing shit. It's like,
again,
bro, like
there's stormtroopers versus Jedi, dude.
Yeah, man, they're just standing around looking like that stormtrooper that bumped his head like in the Death Star. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
what the hell
They
are you
also were probably under orders not to kill her because Adar wanted to talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
doing? Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about a reindeer at the open.
Well, no, Arondir just like murked those fools. But
Oh yeah, but I thought like how silly they. I mean, yeah, they didn't have a chance. He's a Jedi.
yeah. But Justin was saying that they looked like chumps in the one like scene we've seen them fighting in so far this season, prior to this battle at Eregion that we're about to see. And
Okay,
I do think that a lot of that is because, you know, Adar was like, "Don't kill that elf. We need to talk to that elf."
Yeah, and that's that small thing. See, that's a perfect example of why we need somebody like Adelia sitting on the sidelines, getting paid a little, moolah, little money, little green, to just be chilling in like a director's chair, but she's not the director, and she's just chilling. And then she'd be like, hey guys, can we add a line where Adar tells them before they're kind of going out on their march that if they catch the elf, he needs to talk, don't kill him, right? Because I wasn't thinking about that. Then you said it, and I'm like, well, that would make sense, right? That would make perfect sense of why, and that would have made that scene make perfect sense because they're kind of like bewildered. Shoot, we're getting killed, but we can't kill her. What are we supposed to do? Kind of thing. But that would make that whole scene that we saw perfectly fine. There wouldn't be no problems because then easily your mind's going to say, oh, wait, he told them not to kill her. So what are they going to do? They're kind of standing back, but like you're in a tough spot. Yeah. Like, I mean, how are they going
to capture her and she's not going to be taken alive?
Yeah, exactly. Kind of thing. And that's what I'm saying is like sometimes just with the details like that right there, a small detail. And that's what's hard about when you write a story. A small detail like that could make something way better than what it shows because that small detail does make a huge difference.
That was part of the exchange between Adar and Galadriel this episode. Is he was asking her what Sauron had offered her, and she said an army. And I'm thinking in my head, Adar didn't say it, but Adar has an army that Galadriel can use to destroy Sauron. But Adar's second question was, okay, what happens to the orcs after you beat Sauron? And she immediately went to that elf, orcs aren't people, and they should all be killed. And he was like, okay, well, I'm not dealing with you. I have an army for you, but you have to let this army live after the war. But Galadriel isn't there yet.
I'll ask, I mean, anybody can answer, but like mainly Adelia and like French, because like y'all are like more of the lore people. Does seeing Galadriel, because like I said, taking everything outside of it, taking like the character, the lore of it and stuff that I don't know a lot about. I know like, very specific things about Galadriel. But seeing her, like, I like her better the way she's portrayed in this season. Because she's still badass. She's not weaker. She's just like but now you can see, like now she sees a little bit of her flaws. We can see a little bit of her flaws. So now it makes it more relatable. So she's like a cooler character to me now. But like with that being said, the way they're doing it, it's almost like a lot of this is going to come down on her. Like a lot of the downfall is going to be coming down. Like it's your fault. You did this. Do you mind that with her character, or do you think that kind of hurts her character with the lore any?
No.
She's already bearing a ring. So again, as a Tolkien nerd, I know that it's only going to get harder for her.
That's what she said.
Yeah. And something I know it's not going to happen this season, but we still don't even have a hint
finger guns
as to what happened to Celeborn or Celeborn.
That's that's not a little, that's a full.
Her husband's still alive out there somewhere. We just got to
figure him out. I'm real curious if when Celeborn comes back into this series, because that's gonna change Galadriel's character some more too, because she'll have a reason to not just fight all the time.
And she hasn't even started doing her crazy magic stuff.
No, she hasn't.
So she's still using like pokey bits. and arrows. Yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
I could ramble for a year.
Nah, but we'll go down the line if anybody has any closing
Greg, do you have
thoughts
any
or
more to
something
say?
that
You've
yeah,
spoken.
Greg, come on, man. Did you actually watch? Was you watching Lord of the Rings? Like,
Yeah,
come on, man.
I like her like character, like where it's gone so far. Like, I'm not like we saw her kind of like wanting to avenge her brothers. You know what happened to her brother and kill Sauron, and kind of be driven by that, and to have that noble deed be twisted at the end of that season and be found out that she's actually the one that kind of lets him back in the picture and kind of helps him out and gets tricked by him is kind of like poetic. And now we start to see like her journey of trying to like redeem herself almost, or try to like fix everything, but it's still just at the end of the day, it's like when we see Star Wars already, and then we're going back to the prequels, we know everything's gonna go bad for these people. Like, so we're just trying to see how Palpatine and everything plays out, and
I wanted to see it.
Who plays a major figure in this downfall of stuff.
And
so
in
that
when in that exchange when Adar's ignoring Galadriel at this point and taking the army to Eregion, and she's trying to talk him out of it, like, oh no, this is all Sauron's plan. Her trying to talk him out of it is also part of Sauron's fucking plan. That's how many layers this dude is doing in here.
Now it gets redundant.
And that's where the writing has been great. And I mentioned it during the watch along. Charlie Vickers, the way he smiles with just his eyes, his lips barely move, but he's definitely holding it together. He's not smirking, he's not smiling, he's not giving it away, but his eyes are doing this. Oh yeah, the plan is coming together.
Overall, and like entertainment, it can be redundant. Like I think the MCU kind of got that way, but there's a reason why when you have these, like especially like their origin stories for like these superheroes and all these amazing powers, there's always a point to where they get their powers, they kind of learn a little bit how to use them, and then something happens and maybe their powers get taken away, or they get to where they're not as strong as they were or thought they were going to be. And then all of a sudden they get their powers back and like destroy evil at the end, is because I'm telling you, and this is the way I think about it, and this is why I like her character better this season, is because in the first season, it was like she had all the power, like nothing could stop her, like it just seemed like it was invincible. But things are more heroic and things are way more strong and seem more strong to me when, for instance, if Superman grabs a kid that's about to get hit by a bus and then stands there because he's all powerful, that's still a cool thing that he did, right? But I don't think of that as being super strong. He knew he's not going to get killed by the bus. So like there's no, like, it just doesn't seem as powerful. But then you see like a story where a father who doesn't have all those superpowers jumps in front of that bus to save his son. And then he get like, and that part of a story, that character to me is way more powerful than the one who knew he could just stand there because he's freaking invincible, right? And that's why I like the character better in this season, because it's not invincible. She has things that can happen. She has downfalls that she could to occur. She could be beaten. Like even the thing that the scene that I complained about, like with the fighting scene, in the end, her being what she was, right, doing all this cool tricks and everything else, like she was so into herself, she didn't even notice that Adar had joined the battlefield, right? That was her downfall, right? So there's these things that where, oh, these things can happen. And that to me shows more strength. Even though technically it's a weakness, it shows more strength because like now I know, hey, oh, this isn't like all powerful. This isn't this or that. This is actually something like this person has their flaws, which to me makes them stronger because they're having to overcome them, right? And that's just the way I look at it. And I think a lot of other people look at it, or they wouldn't make those like superhero stories that way, right? They take Thor's hammer away, so now he's weaker, and now he's got to overcome that and learn something that makes him do whatever he can do to beat the villain at the end, because it's a better story that way in most cases. And like I said, it does sometimes get redundant, but I like what they did in this season with that character. Like like when I see her on screen, I'm like, oh yeah, cool. This season, last season, not as much. This season, I'm like, hell yeah, like this is kind of a cool story. I like where this plot's going.
Has anyone else noticed though how they've been using her hair to hide the fact that they don't bother in putting her ears on more and more?
Oh yeah.
Wow. French,
Like,
are you an ear guy?
No, I noticed
Listen,
it's from the costume. You know,
I would have never thought to look at that, bro. Like, look,
but I just they showed the points of her ears once, and then every other time she's on camera, her hair is covering those ears, so you can't tell whether she's got those.
Listen, man, we've all heard. Listen, French, we've all heard about the foot fetish. This is the first time in my life that I might have met someone that's got an ear fetish.
This is one of those like film.
Yeah,
those filmmaking sort of like, yeah, this is where they're squeezing the budget in small ways.
Yeah,
bro. If I hear
and
about
also for the actor's convenience, like, yeah, if we don't have to make Morphin sit in the chair and put those ears on, she's gonna be a lot more amenable to like redoing the shot.
I'm telling you,
she doesn't
right
have to wear
now,
the ears.
If I hear a story about someone with an OnlyFans, but it's only ear pics, I'm blaming you. I'm blaming you. It's your fault.
You can blame me all you want. It's
what is
not
he
my
talking
fault.
about, Brandi?
I was talking about prosthetics and film.
No, I know what you're talking about, French. It's Justin over
Nah,
here.
man, like who looks at that? Who looks at that? It's like, bro, I'm gonna see if she's got her ears on today. Oh, wait, look at that.
Maybe they didn't put the ears on because she's gonna be fighting and stuff a lot, so they don't want to fall off.
The difference between seasons, because last season her hair, they constantly had it back in some way, so we show off those 20 years. She's definitely an elf, people. Just in case you were wondering, yes, this is an elf. 20 years, elf.
I get.
And this season is like, okay, we all know Galadriel's an elf. All right, fine. We don't have to make her wear this.
I get what you're saying, but all I can think of right now,
you don't have to spend any money on this. Let's do this.
Especially since football's going on right now. Only thing I can think of is like the people that they pause every little frame for the game film to see if a quarterback's making the correct decision. And I see French doing that to make sure, like, does she got them ears on? Wait, whoa! Penalty flag on the play, French. There's no ears. Okay.
Yeah.
Penalty flag.
20 years, haven't you noticed? Because they make the first season or so, they made a big deal of making sure you saw every elf's ear.
You know, they're probably just like, hey,
ears are cut off this season.
now, listen, now they're like, even the not even the biggest fans of Lord of the Rings understand she's an elf by now, so they're probably like, yeah, we don't care no more. You know what I'm saying?
That seems so money.
All right, any last words? Go ahead.
Two things. Durin's son looks like the Cowardly Lion from Wizard of Oz for some reason to me. I don't know why. I was just like, okay. And then Kilobimbor's work shot reminds me of like a disappointed North Pole, like with Santa. Because the hell are we doing? I was like, yeah, that's a really sad place. So,
bro, I ain't gonna lie to you. I was a little disappointed whenever he was like, I can't find my hammer. And then ends up being over there, which I'm pretty sure old dude like magically made it appear there. But then when he like, I'm expecting a hammer. What the hell? What the hell was that little ass toy thing that he like? Bro, what the hell are you talking about, man?
That was a creasing hammer. They said that like twice to be very specific about.
They did.
It was a very specific tiny.
It would have made more sense if they'd have said, "Oh, little dainty hammer for small people" or something.
Hey,
that's like the
a little.
Listen, man, that
Brandi-sized.
that reminds me of that one scene in that movie. It's like the center. What is this? The center for the ants that can't read good, and he just knocks it out the thing. It was supposed to be the center for children. It was just a model. God, what? Why is that movie? What's the name of that movie, French? You know, the male model. He had the
Zoolander.
Zoolander, yes.
The male model and Adelia. So ask French and Adelia knows it.
not in my wheelhouse.
I've never
Zoolander's
seen
funny as
Zoolander.
hell.
I heard male model. I was like, please let it be Zoolander.
Bro, Zoolander is freaking hilarious, bro. The gas fight, and then they all die because somebody lit up a cigarette. God.
All right. Let's get out of here before Justin starts reviewing Zoolander.
Oh my god.
Hansel is so
Yeah, it's a
hot.
different video.
I have the ring.
So in Zoolander, there was this moment. Nah, guys, I'm just playing. Until next time, guys. Peace. Let me find the right thing right here. Oh crap! Almost hit the wrong thing.